With training camp only one day away, the Canucks have some big position battles to figure out as camp goes on. Who plays with Petey? Who rounds out the rest of the top six? Who solidifies the bottom pair on defense? How's it going, guys? I am CanucksLand, and today I will be going through what I think are the top 5 position battles for the Canucks in training camp, and who I think is going to win those position battles as camp goes on, who I think is going to surprise, who I think is not going to disappoint, who's just not going to be as good as the other players. And as always, if you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can continue watching. We're going to make videos throughout the entire season, going through each game, going through fun topics, and as well the podcast on Fridays. Let me know if you guys have any position battles that you think of that I didn't say in this video that you think are going to be a big story going into training camp, and let me know what you think. If I'm wrong, who you think is going to win the position battles. But let's hop into the first one, and that one is who's going to play with Elias Pettersson. Now, for me, this one's pretty easy because I've been dead set on who I think Elias Pettersson's going to play with since the offseason was kind of over, since, Vancouver was done making moves. I kind of was looking through the lineup, and I'm like, I've had the days to look through the lineup, and I think I know who those good players are going to be. But it rounds out to 5 players, I think. We got Jake DeBrusk, Evander Kane, Brock Besser, Connor Garland, and Nils Hoglander. Those are the 5 that could end up playing with Elias Pettersson. Now, Kiefer Sherwood is also a wild card spot to end up moving up and playing with Elias Pettersson if the chemistry works. And chemistry is partly the reason that I'm going with the 2 players that I'm going with. Kiefer Sherwood is just off the list, though, for now. Brock Besser is the first one I will go over. I don't think he plays with Pettersson. I don't think the chemistry is there. He was more of a Miller guy, and when Hedl came in and played after the Miller trade, I really liked the chemistry. So yet again, chemistry is what I want to go with. I want these lines, as much as we don't have those star first-line players, you got to go with what works, and I don't think Besser works. I think Besser works best with Hedl, and he could elevate Hedl's game on that second line, making a Hedl a better 2C until we either get one, or he just plays great for the entire season. Connor Garland's one that I could definitely see being up there. I just don't think so. I think he probably maxes out at about the second line. He could even play in the third line if you add another top 6 forward. Instead of adding a 2C, if Hedl looks great, you add a top 6 forward or even a first line forward that can work with Pettersson. Garland can move down. I don't think we have the cap space to do so, but it would be, the first option because he also plays a third line kind of role. Nils Hoglander, I just don't know about Nils Hoglander. I don't know if he can be that guy. That leaves 2 options, Jake DeBrusk and Evander Kane. I think Jake DeBrusk and Evander Kane will be those guys who end up playing with Elias Pettersson, and I think that they will do well together. I think that Kane's going to be a great compliment to Petey, with him needing that 1C that's really, really good. And if Petey plays up to his role, he can elevate those 2 guys to play better. In my player predictions that I did on YouTube Shorts/TikTok, I said that Jake DeBrusk was going to get 55 points with 25 assists, 30 goals, and I think that's going to elevate due to Elias Pettersson being an 82 to 90 point guy. All right, let's hop into the second one. Who rounds out the rest of the top 6? Now, since Pettersson's going to be playing with DeBrusk and Kane, those guys are in the top 6. Hedl, who does Hedl play with? Hedl's definitely going to be that 2C. I don't see anybody else being in that 2C role other than Hedl. So, who's going to be in that second line role? I think that in that second line role, you're going to have Brock Besser. That's automatic. I think Brock Besser should be on the first line. Don't get me wrong. But I think the chemistry works a little bit better with Hedl to where you can put Besser on the second line, and it actually makes the team a little bit better with Besser being an elevated player on a lower line. Then, on his other side, I think that Nils Hoglander is just not quite there, and I'm worried about his growth. I'm worried about if he'll ever be there, but Connor Garland is the safe option. He's also a guy who will get in the corners and get gritty. That saves Hedl the responsibility of doing that in half of the ice, giving Hedl a little bit of a break to stay away from the boards and away from a potential concussion/injury that could hurt him for the rest of the season. Connor Garland could be that guy getting into the corners. Hedl could be the playmaker to set up Besser. Besser's that shot guy. Besser can get in front of the net too. If Hedl needs Besser in front, that works. But Besser can be the shooter. Hedl could be the passer. Garland is the guy that gets the puck. And Garland could even go to the net. He gets the puck, gives it to Hedl, goes right to the net. Besser gets it, bang. That could work. That will work. Pettersson has a guy who has a shot. Kane. Pettersson has a shot. DeBrusk can get in front and get goals. These lines work. Kane can get into the corners and play good. Pettersson can get into the corners. He's added some weight. Apparently the speed is up according to Foot on all the players. The press conference was today. I just watched it. So I do think that these two lines will work in terms of chemistry and in terms of just evening it out a little bit to have lethal factors on both the top two lines that can add scoring. Now, down to the bottom six. The next two are going to be the bottom six, and I think that Ratu and Bluger is a topic of discussion when it comes to training camp battles. I went over this on TikTok. I already said my piece, but I will regurgitate it, and I'll also add a little bit maybe that I just couldn't add. I think that Ratu is the high upside player that could end up being a 2C in the future. We also have Braden Coots in the system. Now, I don't think Coots is ready. He's going to go back to Seattle and play there. But I think that Ratu is that guy right now. If he shows development, he could be a 30, 35-point guy. He could even be a 40-point guy playing with third-line players. Hell, I think on the third line he's going to be playing with guys like Niels Hoglander and Kiefer Sherwood. They both have offensive upside while also being hard workers. I think that Ratu just needs to show the hard work and the upside in scoring, and he definitely earns that 3C role. But if Ratu just quite isn't there yet, I'm totally fine with Bluger playing there. I think Bluger is more of a fourth-line guy. I think that he can play the third-line role consistently. I mean, he's played it the last few seasons. We said we needed a third-line forward the last few years, right, because our top two were good. Now we need a second-line forward because we think Hedel could be a perfect third-line forward. Ratu could also be that guy. And then we're stuck with the Suter situation unless Hedel takes a step up. I think that Ratu should be the third-line center at a camp, but Bluger is a big safety net that will work if he's there. Now to the fourth line. Who rounds out the rest of it? Because I think Hoglander and Sherwood are up there on the third line there. I think that leaves O'Connor on the fourth line on the left side. There's one spot left. One spot for, I think, four guys. We got Sasson, Baines, Carlson, and Kravtsov, who can battle for that bottom spot. Who do I think wins it? I think Linus Karlsson is the guy. He showed great physicality and great upside in the Abbey playoffs. I was really impressed with his play. I thought that his chemistry with Baines works, so if there is injury, and we believe Baines is close enough to the NHL, it could work as a fourth line to where if they get in the offensive zone, that chemistry could show. That net front pass, that cross-creaser that those two showed looked amazing, as Karlsson would always set up Baines, or Baines would set up... I think it was the opposite. I think Baines would set up Karlsson. Their chemistry shows having Karlsson on that fourth line works. And if Sherwood's having a bit of a downtime, or if you need a bit more defensive play on your fourth line, definitely you can move Karlsson up to the third line and get the younger Hoglander, Ratu, Karlsson a little bit more offensive upside on that third line, but you can limit their time to be kind of like an even, like two fourth lines, where you have an offensive fourth line if the first line is not rest enough and they're not ready to go, and then you got the defensive fourth line that will go out and make it a pain for everybody to play. I think Sherwood would definitely be that on that fourth line, but I think Karlsson rounds out the bottom part, and I think the two scratches who they'll probably keep up are Arshdeep Baines and Kravtsov. I think that Sasson, due to his waiver ineligibility, is an easy send down to where you're not risking the loss. You could send down Sasson and not worry about it. All right, now for the last one, number 5. That one is who's going to be on the bottom pair. The top 4 is pretty locked unless for a major surprise at camp. Hughes and Hronek are definite locks. Those are for sure. Marcus Pettersson on the left side, locked. He's not going to be moving at all. Myers on the right side is a bit iffy. Maybe someone plays a little bit better than Myers, but due to him being a big leader in this role, in this team, and Foot seeing him as a leader, I don't see Myers moving. He's also fairly consistent, although I don't think he's a legit top 4 guy. He's serviceable in that role. I think Myers is fine. The bottom pair, though, Derek Forbort could even be beat out for that left spot. I think Forbort ends up in that left spot. You don't pay him $2 million to not play him, and if he doesn't play, it's an easy contract to move. I'm sure he wanted to stay, and we wanted him on that PK, which is totally fine. But I feel like he is expendable, and it will add to possibly $5 million in cap space if he does get beat out. Who are the players that can beat him out, though? I don't think Tom Willander's there. I know a lot of people are very worried about Tom Willander, or some people are very worried. I'm not as worried. I think it's going to be the same as DPD. I saw Quadrelli say the same thing on Canucks Army, that we just didn't think DPD was ready last year, but we thought he looked good enough for the AHL. And by the end of the season, he was ready. He was playing really good in the NHL. I think it's the same thing with Willander. There's things you got to pick up. Willander will probably be ready at the end of the year. DPD, that's a guy who's ready. Although I did think he took a dumb penalty at the end of game 2 in the prospect game. I think that he's ready. I think that he takes that right spot. But if Mancini also looks better than Forbort, DPD can play the left side. I think it's going to be Forbort on the right, DPD, or Forbort on the left, DPD on the right, with Mancini as that extra guy. P.O. Joseph is also there. I feel like he's an insurance defenseman, kind of like a Juleson, who just maybe... Mancini can also be sent down without waivers, so if they are worried about losing Joseph, you can send down Mancini, keep Joseph up. He's your scratched insurance defenseman in case of an injury. And then if an injury even pops up and you feel more comfortable with Mancini being on that right side, you can call up Mancini and play him over with P.O. Joseph still being that guy. All right, that's it. So we've gone through all of them. Let's do a bit of a recap. I think that DeBrusk and Kane end up playing with Pettersson, and that Besser and Garland end up rounding out that top 6 on the second line. I think that Sherwood ends up playing Sherwood and Hoglander on the third line, have Ratu down the middle for them, and I think Carlson complements the fourth line of O'Connor and Bluger. And then I also think that Forbort and DPD will be up there, as well with either Mancini or P.O. Joseph, depending on who they're more comfortable sending down. That's it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. The video on your right is the video from Monday. The video on your left is the video from Friday. Subscribe's right down under there.